please.
Yeah, thank you so much for accommodating and for inviting me, Professor Krishna and IMPRI. Um, so I have been listening to the comments, and I of course agree with Professor Mani and what Mr. Somidatta said, as well as what Deboditya said. But I wanted to bring in a different kind of a perspective in terms of the budget, and I primarily work with industry, startups, small industry. So I think, what I'd like to bring is the angle that the budget, kind of brings forth from an industry perspective. And if you look at it from an industry perspective, this is very, very decarbonization driven budget. And I think it's not so much of about the environment anymore, the environment that we talk about, but I think it is very much driven by an industrial narrative where, which benefits what is happening in the global space to make our industry more competitive. So I think, some observations, I don't have a detailed, uh, I don't have a lot of detail, but if you look at it from the decarbonization narrative, um, the top 250 odd industry, the listed industry, between 2021 and 2022, if you look at the percentage use of renewable energy, it increased from 5% to 9%, which is very little. And much of the discussion in the industry is because on the supply side, how do we make this RE, whether it's hydro, whether it's hydrogen, whether it's solar, whether it's wind, how do we make it accessible for industry to kind of enable the transition, not just in the operations and increasing operational efficiency, but also in the supply chain. So I think the move to expand nuclear capacity is driven by an industry need. And soon we will be looking at regulation that will bring the private sector in. So I think, that's an observation that I see, having been in the ground and working a lot, intensively with industry. So I think the transition to bring in nuclear is actually to because of the commitments that we've made overall in terms of our 2070 goal, and because of the pressure that we are facing now to advance that goal, because 2070 is a very long-term goal, and I think at some point of time, India is looking at, a leadership role as far as pushing the agenda of renewable energy. So I think the transition to renewable energy is driven. I'm not in a position to say whether it's good or bad, but I think the thought process is to enable the industrial decarbonization faster. And it's actually not so much about protecting our environment as much as it is to meet the decarbonization narrative that is being that is being driven by the industrial and business community. So that's point one. The second is, I think it's a very pro manufacturing budget, and again, because of my work in the industry, I think the reason that it's a pro manufacturing budget is because there is a lot of global regulation now that is coming to monitor our industry, and we need to figure out how to address those regulations, because the I'm not talking about the top tier industry, but if we look at our small medium industry, we look at unlisted companies, we are not in a position to develop competitive products for the global market. And I think that is one of the reasons why the domestic manufacturing push is being encouraged, and there is allocations for startups as well as allocation for the small and medium industry, because it's more about helping develop products which would be competitive in domestic markets or in the global south, because of the regulatory environment in the global north. And I'm not saying that this necessarily means that we'll be developing clean products, but hopefully, if we have the right kind of push, then we could use this incentive to look at clean technology, clean products, clean energy transition. So there is a positive and a negative, but I mean it's how the industry looks at it. But what is what I'd like to really say is that it is essential, because otherwise the small industry is going to be in a very crucial in a crucial mess because of the global regulatory environment. Um, and my third point is on, what Shamla talked about in terms of waste management. And I've been in this, in this transition where we talked about waste management, and which is moving to circularity. So if you look at the budget, again, industry driven terminologies, and more focused on circularity. So if you look at something like the allocation for ship recycling, which is actually in some way what we used to look at from a perspective in the industrial waste management, but now it's more focused in reusing that material. So I think it's interesting, because ship recycling is something that is again a very strong global narrative because of it, and the globally also everyone is struggling to look at decarbonization net zero strategies for the ship industry. And I think the fact that we are looking at ship recycling and it has a separate mention, is something that probably also aligns with the government of India's, um, you know, uh, strategic action plans for decarbonizing the steel industry, because that is one of the net zero decarbonization plans that is almost ready, and we will we begin to implement it, because we are taking a different kind of a narrative based on our 2070 goal, as compared to the 2045, 2030 global net zero targets. So I think these are some of the thought processes that has gone into the budget. I'm not been part of the discussions, but it's my guesswork, because I've seen the industry interests, and where the industry is facing challenges. Um, the positive side probably is the allocation to the drinking water mission, because again, I feel there is an industry push there, because water security is a major area that industry is now talking about. And there is a lot of drive from companies to go in, get to become water positive. So I think there is a link there.
Prarthana, you have taken already seven
Yes.
minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just one more quick point. The sad part is where it moves away from not following the global narrative and the global need for industry, is the focus on nature, which is going to be the next big thing in the business environment. So I think there the budget really misses out, because we have cut budgets for biodiversity conservation and nature conservation activities.